How's it going, people? It's that time of week again. It's book review time, and this week we're doing Quiet by Susan Cain, subtitled The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. Now, this one is an examination of introversion and extroversion. For those of you who may not know, extroversion is a personality trait in which you're very outgoing, very sociable, very chatty. Introverts tend to keep themselves to themselves, would rather be alone than in big groups of people. So you get the idea of what that means. And it's an examination of how society is geared towards extroverts, towards go-getters, and towards people who will go out and socialise and make loads of friends and loads of acquaintances. And it's basically an examination of how introverts fit in that world. And you will examine a range of introverts, famous names of people who were introverted throughout history, from Eleanor Roosevelt to Rosa Parks, to Steve Wozniak, all the way up to Lewis Carroll. And you will also examine how, even in the animal kingdom, you get introverts and extroverts, and how animalistic behaviours reflect certain animals or certain member of the species, their personality and their introversion or their extroversion, relatively. So it's quite a fascinating thing to read. You will read about loads of different studies and different types of tests and things that psychologists and scientists and doctors have done to determine whether introversion is something that is born in one's DNA or whether it's environmentally, influenced, etc., etc. You will examine whether a person can become an extrovert despite being born an introvert, or vice versa, things like that. And it's really, really fascinating to read. Really interesting to see that this is an area that for scientists and doctors and psychologists have actually been studying quite vigorously, and they really want to figure out what causes one to be introverted, what causes someone to be extroverted. Is it inbuilt? Is it not inbuilt? Is it environmental? Is it a mix of both, etc., etc.? And it's really, really, really intriguing to read that, because I'm quite introverted myself. I'm quite keep myself to myself. I'd much rather read a book than go out and go to a party. So it's quite interesting to see that someone has actually taken the time to write a book on people like myself, because we seem to be sort of shunned in society, and she says that throughout the book. Introverts are sort of seen as outcasts. They're rude. They're unsociable is the term that gets thrown around a lot. You're antisocial, and it's an examination of that, an examination of social attitudes towards introverts and how society, especially in the Western world, is geared towards extroversion. She also examines different cultures and whether introversion/extroversion is a cultural thing. For instance, in Asia, in China in particular, they're very introverted people, very sort of solo sort of people who would study relentlessly for hours, rather than in America, where college kids go out and they go to parties and they have a good time and they drink alcohol and they sleep around and all this kind of thing. Frat boy type stuff, frat boy jocks types, American stereotypes. Whereas the Asians will sit there quietly and they'll mind their own business and then she also examines relationships. So the weird little mix of introversion and extroversion, and how they're often drawn to each other because they sort of bounce off of each other, especially in marriages and things. So if you've got an extroverted wife, her and her introverted husband, they may clash at times due to their difference in personality, but ultimately they bounce off of each other, because the husband gives the wife the capacity to explore her more introverted side, and vice versa. The wife gives the husband the capacity to be a bit more go-getter when he needs to. So it examines pretty much every aspect of life, from school to work to social lives, etc., etc. And it's really fascinating to read. So go ahead and pick that up if you haven't read it already. It's Quiet by Susan Cain. Yeah, it was very, very interesting. I did bust out my old highlighter and get some bits highlighted like I do when a book really pulls me in. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.